You look like an angel, walk like an angel, talk like an angel, but I got wise. You're the devil in disguise. Oh yes you are, devil in disguise. Ooh. And welcome back to StillerBros at the Movies, where today we're talking about an important piece of our childhood turned into what might be one of the more divisive millennial baits that has come out this year. Lilo and Stitch, parentheses 2025.
Yes. So, Lilo and Stitch was a movie that back in 2002 pretty much was our jam, because at 9 years old we were really into sci-fi.
Yeah, so this is not the first Disney remake to come out where we were alive for the movie to exist, but it is the first one that I legitimately have memories of being in the theater, like clear core memories.
Yeah.
It was the last day of school, opening day, we went to see it afterwards.
It was raining outside. I remember that, and it's raining now.
Yeah, and it was us, our sister, our mom, and our grandma, and just a core memory of this movie that became a cornerstone of our early to late adolescence.
And that didn't hurt by the fact that that Stitch as a character kind of blew up in the last 23 years. Like 5 years after the movie came out, we had 3 sequels and a television show.
And so Lilo and Stitch is probably one of the few Disney movies that got to build its fan base by not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's in the 23 years since this movie first came out, we've had 3 direct-to-video sequels, an anime series that spawned 2 specials, a Chinese spin-off series, a novel series I just learned about today, and a manga,
along with the requisite theme park ride
and ice shows, and all of this stuff that came about because of this character is just beloved over all across the world.
Which is kind of weird when you remember that the setup of the movie was that he's basically a genetic monster sent to destroy everything he touches, convicted of crimes against God.
Yeah, basically.
That's how the movie starts. But it's also a movie about family and love and finding your people. And so Lilo and Stitch is a classic in the sense that when you're a kid, you watch it for the mind-blowing, colorful animation and the funny little jokes and the aliens. But when you're an adult, you watch it for the more grounded story about a family just trying to find their way in a world that seems to be out to rip them apart.
Yeah, it's an insanely deep story from such a simple premise. And Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlow, the writer-directors of this movie, Chris Sanders especially because he's credited as the creator of the concept of Lilo and Stitch, have basically been able to continue their careers off the back of what is essentially a masterpiece on their first go.
And yeah, it's just the original Lilo and Stitch is one of those movies that just gets better the older you get, because it's the more you understand things, like the subtle jokes and the more adult, mature storylines that kind of build off of it just kind of get better with age and make the emotions more. So naturally, Disney needed to remake it.
Yeah. And this is a movie that really kind of makes me nervous, because Lilo and Stitch, especially for me, top 5, maybe even top 3 favorite Disney animated movies of all time.
Absolutely. And so a live-action remake was probably going to be something that they were going to do always, especially because when you consider it, all the other live-action remakes have been like these big, expensive offerings where it's like, we got to build a castle, we got to make period-appropriate outfits, we got to do all of this work, and it's going to be really expensive, and like all the characters are CGI, so we got to figure that out. But then Lilo and Stitch, on the other hand,
you can shoot everything in Hawaii. Most of the movie takes place in areas that people already live in, and you can get extras and everything without having to worry about it. Takes place in modern day. It all makes sense there. You just have to CGI aliens for like the beginning of the movie and then have aliens there.
Yeah, it's not. If you want to make one of these live action remakes and you want to make it like a simple mid-budget affair, Lilo and Stitch is the one you go with.
And they kind of went with a pretty okay choice for a director, because the director for this particular live action remake is Dean Fleischer Camp, who recently made his directorial debut a few years ago with Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
An adaptation of the series of YouTube shorts that he had created.
Yes, which the movie is heartbreakingly sweet.
It's an A24 movie, so it's got that kind of vibe to it, but it's also just one of those movies where it's like, oh, we're going to get the adults and the kids crying intensely off of the strength of this cute little character, which, oh look, what other movie can brag about that kind of thing?
Yeah. And then as for the cast, we've got a few people that we know, particularly Chris Sanders, the voice of Stitch for almost everything for the last 23 years, is back playing the character.
Yeah, we talked a bit about Chris Sanders being an animation director for the majority of his career in our Wild Robot video.
And we're probably going to bring it up again next video.
But for right now, Chris Sanders is just basically here because, as we stated back then, if they want Stitch to so much as walk across the background of a video game, they need to get him in the vocal booth to record some dialogue.
Yeah. And then playing the other titular role of Lilo, we have newcomer Maya Ki Aloha.
Which is just kind of, whenever I would come up with the idea of if somebody needs to make a Lilo and Stitch remake, then the one thing for sure is that Lilo needs to be a completely unknown actress.
Yes.
Which is not a hard thing to say, because it's like, obviously that would have to happen. Because there aren't a lot of name actresses in that particular age range who fit the bill of, we need someone to play Lilo. So the fact that they cast an unknown, not a hard ask. Then we've got the rest of the cast. Hannah Waddingham, as I pointed out last time, is voicing the Grand Councilwoman, and Zach Galifianakis and Billy Magnuson are playing Jumba and Pleakley.
Yes. Hopefully Billy Magnuson is better in this than he was in his last Disney live-action remake appearance.
Yeah, he was the one white guy in Aladdin, and he was going to be in Little Town until that fell through.
Yeah.
And then Zach Galifianakis is Zach Galifianakis. We all know who he is, the guy from The Hangover who is just kind of dumb and floating around. And now he's playing Jumba, the character from the movie who the joke was that he wanted to be an evil scientist, but he was shockingly bad at it.
But it's going to be interesting to see how these interpretations are. We also have Courtney B. Vance taking on the role of Cobra Bubbles.
And, yeah, we've got a couple of the actors from the original movie coming back for cameo appearances here and there. But the main thing is just that since we have waited a week after the movie came out, we have seen a lot of the stuff that's like, here's how it's different from the original, and it's made me nervous.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, it feels like you missed the point in a few places. In a lot of ways, this is just as much okay, do we think that it can save itself? And it's almost just an autopsy to see if maybe they found a way to throw the pieces together, but I don't know.
We're going to find out, and we're going to keep an open mind, but at the same time, it's like, the things we've heard aren't exactly optimistic.
It feels like they were just like, here are some very obvious points from the original movie that you should probably hit if you want to remember this is what made the movie great, and it seems like you're deliberately missing them. Oh, and also, we're bringing back the 2 original songs and the Elvis soundtrack from the original movie. Those are important.
Yeah, I mean, those are important because Elvis is Elvis, and the original songs are absolute bops.
Yeah, and especially when we've got I am Tongi, the American Idol winner from 2 years back, singing Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride.
Yeah.
Which I've heard it. It's a really good cover. I really like the kind of edge that he's got to his voice, his kind of smokiness that kind of makes it feel like its own original thing. So, and also the original kids choir from the movie is back. Obviously not the kids, because, you know...
All those kids are adults, but
you get what I mean. Like, they called the same school and got a new choir of kids from them with the same choir director.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're going in trying to have an open mind, but also nervous about what we've heard.
Yeah.
We'll see what we think of it, and we'll see you after the jump. I have thoughts.
We both kind of have thoughts, yes.
This is... So it was never going to live up to the incredible masterpiece that was the original, but it also, there's a lot.
All of my criticism for it can be summed up in the contradictory statements of they changed too much, but they didn't change enough. They got it, but they didn't get it.
There's a lot. I guess I can just say Dean Fleischer Camp at least worked well with his cinematographer to make it look as decently as he could.
Like, there's style to this, so like the opening is different, but there's a style is kind of similar to the original movie, but there's a different stylistic flair to it.
But that's kind of the problem with the opening too, is that it's almost beat for beat the exact same thing as the beginning. Like, even the whole chunks of the dialogue feel ripped out of it, but it's also just like it's super fast, just because it's like, look, these gigantic fully animated sequences cost way more money than Disney is giving us, so we need to move fast, get out of here, and immediately get to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of feels hollow when we get there. And then it feels like every character that wasn't Lilo or Stitch kind of got wrecked somewhere in the script. Like, there's some whole scenes where Nani treats Lilo less like her sister who she loves despite everything, and more like a burden here and there.
It's very difficult to explain why on just one viewing, but like, I thought it was okay-ish, but I wouldn't call it mind-blowing because I've seen the best possible version of this. I watched it last night, so...
I mean, it just feels like a lot of it is so hollow in places where it's just like, oh, let's get to these emotional beats, and it's like, okay, but I don't know if I feel that much. Like, look, Maya Kealoha is amazing as Lilo. I wouldn't want anyone else playing Lilo after seeing what she did with the role. But it's just that what little they give to her is just kind of... It's not even just little. It feels like they gave her as much of what Lilo was in the original movie as they possibly could. But it's also just kind of one of those cases of, okay, but why should I care about how this is going when it's like, it just feels like we're going through the motions.
Like, I loved Lilo and Stitch in this, and you kind of have to, because they're the main characters, and Maya Kealoha is just so good in this role. I am very excited to see what comes next for her, if anything comes next, because she's just probably one of the best child actors we've seen in a theatrical movie in the last, 5 years.
But it's also just the case of, it just kind of feels like we're just kind of, look, beat, then we don't, focus on it. When it comes to Stitch's character arc, it feels kind of like we're going a little too fast from the destructive little gremlin to the sweet, adorable little puppy that everybody loves in the series and the sequels and just the last act of the movie.
And that last act is probably the most different part of the movie. And I'm gonna give him props for the fact that they were able to economically rearrange the story to make it fit to a degree.
Yeah, but in that case, it was another kind of character assassination because if you've been paying attention to social media in any kind of way, they made Jumba the bad guy. Jumba, the lovable oaf, who the whole joke is that he's a mad scientist who's really bad at being evil.
But he calls himself evil. But I mean, if this was something where we never saw, so if it was an original idea and if we never saw the original movie didn't exist. This was it. It would be better.
I don't know if it would be, because it feels like this is a movie that kind of relies on you having already been familiarized yourself with the original movie. Like, there's whole beats that are just kind of like, look, we know that you saw this already. We gotta get the job done. Let's go, 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 go. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's kind of interesting. I liked it for the most part, but it's also just one of those things where, I don't know, it got me in the emotional feels, but I will always get emotional over Stitch. And then there's other stuff, like Pleakley is dressed in weird outfits now, but it's not because he's cross-dressing all the time. It's specifically because he's expanding on the joke from the movie where he's just like, I don't understand Earth culture, and yet I'm the Earth culture expert. So instead of dressing like a woman and saying random stuff is wrong, I'm going to just wear weird outfits put together out of random smatterings of clothing.
Yeah.
And why is Cobra Bubbles in this movie?
The way they've changed things around, Cobra Bubbles is completely useless in this movie.
He is unnecessary. He's an unnecessary... Why even put him in here? Why... You already effectively wrote him out when you added Tia Carrara as a completely new character, and suddenly you're just like, well, we need to put the Cobra Bubbles in, once again, because it feels like they're just kind of playing the hits.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of empty. I'll always love the original Lilo and Stitch. I'll always have a soft spot for the series and the sequels, but this kind of just feels like, okay, it's there. I don't think it's the worst thing. Like, for everyone who's been complaining about the ending and everything like that, they undo it. They basically chicken out on it in the last possible seconds of the movie.
The ending is not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, it's a cop-out. There's cop-out after cop-out of it.
Where it's like,
if you're going to do it, commit.
Like, if you're going to miss the point this much, then just go ahead and commit to it. Also, I feel like Elvis kind of got the shaft here.
No, Elvis was always a part of the franchise.
And yet it feels like they only just got a couple of the Elvis songs just because they needed to. And yeah, they're good Elvis songs, and they picked the right ones. And it's just that, well, I think the best way to point this out is that the Devil in Disguise montage that they do, which is different from the one in the original movie, but it's still in there, the sound mixing turns down the Elvis in favor of the actual scenes, where in the original it was kind of a more even mix, so that you could actually hear the Elvis song over the top of it.
Yeah.
Here they just kind of turned it more into score and less into montage music, which I feel like was a deliberate choice, but it's also just kind of like, if you're gonna do something like that, why not?
All in all, I think this was an okay movie. I hope Dean Fleischer Camp can come up with something, can come up with his next movie something different and new and better. If they do a sequel to this, and they very well could, because this movie's done.
It's already made more money than the original, and that's already feels a little wrong. But whatever.
But so if they make another one of these, then I'm interested to see the direction they take it in.
Because they definitely aren't going to do the same thing that they did with the original sequels.
Yeah.
But it's also a case of, I just don't know, man. This just felt hollow.
We're about a year out from the next Disney remake, so...
Yeah, to all the people who are like, please let this kill the Disney remakes, it's like, no. We are already too far down the pipe with the Moana remake. We're not gonna stop seeing these for a little while.
We got at least one left.
They paused the rest of them in production. They paused the rest of them in pre-production. We're not gonna see what we're gonna do with Tangled, which part of me is a little disappointed, but the other part of me is like, hooray! Tangled remains untouched. But yeah, this is I have complicated feelings, mostly just kind of, if you were going to make these choices, why did you make these specific choices? But, yeah. It's not the worst movie, because Minecraft is still the most bafflingly stupid movie we've seen all year, but I just don't think this was ever going to live up to the original, and it just kind of feels like they were just like, well, if we're not going to live up to the original, let's try something completely out of left field and not really feeling it. Yeah. Anyway, that's it for right now. Lilo and Stitch it's a movie that exists, and if you were...
I liked it, so...
Quiet, you. And it's a movie that exists, and if you were going to see it, then you're probably going to see it anyway, and you're probably going to feel like it's okay. But for right now, that's it. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave in the comments what you may or may not have thought of Lilo and Stitch 2825, or even just the original. And don't forget to tune in next time when you just gestured to all of me. Bye.